So Jeff, what do you call your creatures?
What do I call them?
Yeah, what do you call them? Are they creatures? Are they are
The,
they are they
they're
people?
they're
Are
just
they?
sculptures. Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. It's interesting. I come up with the titles at the end. Eh, uh, Ask me a question about titles after I talk a little bit about my creative process.
So Jeff, we're excited to have you at the gallery today, dropping off a whole host of amazing new sculptures. The process is that you do is really incredible. Can you tell us about it?
Um, yeah, I'm excited to be here. I always enjoy the day that I get to put new work out into the world. Um, my Making bronzes is a very long process, and part of it is the artistic part, and part of it is the skill craftsmanship part. So I'll talk first a little bit about my creative process. Um, I sculpt in wax. In order to make a bronze, you have to have a wax copy of the sculpture. And I actually sculpt in hollow wax because in order to make a bronze, you have to have a hollow wax copy. I don't know of any other bronze artists who actually sculpt in hollow wax. So I start with big sheets of flat wax, or a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch thick. I heat those up and then form them into whatever shapes you see here. One thing that I enjoy about my process is that I do not have any idea what a sculpture is going to look like before I make it, before it actually happens. So my creative process is kind of maybe 3 steps. First of all, I make individual forms out of wax. So if you look at these pieces, there's a form here. There are 2 legs are different forms. There's a head that's a different form. This hair is a different form. Here you've got the head that is an individual form, and the belly and the body are individual forms. I make um, I have literally thousands of individual wax forms in my studio strewn all over the place. It's kind of like a junkyard of interesting wax forms. So the first step in my process is I just make shapes that I think are cool. Once I have done that for a few months and I've got hundreds of fresh, new, cool forms, then the second part of the process is I grab individual forms and I say, oh, is that legs? Is that head? What does that remind me of? And a lot of times something doesn't look like anything, and I try to make forms that don't actually remind me of anything in and of themselves, because I find that helps my creative process. I love novelty, so I want to create something that even I never thought of before. And so I'll take the forms and stick them together, and sometimes I don't know what those 2 forms are going to be together, but I feel like they look intriguing, and then I'll set those aside. And so eventually I build up to the point where I've got something that starts reminding me, like, so this form here, for example, you can see these individual hairs. I made those individual pieces of wax not having any idea what they would be. I made this shape here and this shape here were just sitting on the bench in wax. I did not know what they were going to be. At some point, I ended up sticking these individual hairs inside this shape. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And I set it aside for a couple months. And then I saw this sitting next to that on the bench. And I thought, oh, man, maybe that's a bird head. And that's really how the creative process works for me. I find the sculptures in my junk pile, and that is super, super exciting to me. It's like, wow, where's that idea even come from? So almost all of the shapes that you see, or the pieces that you see here, were created that way, as compositions of individual 3D forms that are made out of hollow wax. So those are the first 2 steps. And then once I get a piece, for example, with this piece here, I had the neck, the beak, this head form, and these were all created in and of themselves, individually, not related to anything. And then I realized once I put them together that I needed a body. So I took another form that was close and I tweaked this so that the composition fit. And then made this little base that looks like it has rippling water on the top separately. So this was kind of made part on purpose, and the base is obviously made specifically for that piece. So almost all of the pieces are cast in parts. This was cast. The hair was cast in 3 separate pieces. The head, a front and back, so that's 5. 6 for the body, and then 1 piece here and 1 piece here, 7 and 8. So this was cast in 8 different pieces of bronze, which then have to be welded together. So I've got this bare bronze, and I've got to connect all those pieces like a jigsaw puzzle back together so it looks like it originally did when it was in wax. And then when you get done welding, you've got welds all over the surface of every one of these sculptures, and you have to make the weld disappear. That's a process called chasing. And most bronze sculptors don't use, this is a really deep, complicated texture here, and most bronze sculptors don't use textures that are that deep because they are so difficult to chase or to make the weld disappear. It's actually like doing jewelry work. I wear 3 times magnifiers and a little etcher and use chisels and rocks or whatever else. So there are welds here all the way across the head and around the back that where I needed to make the weld, turn the weld into this texture. So I had to remove and bang material around to mimic what it looked like in wax. And just chasing those 2 welds took over 10 hours. Probably to chase this whole piece, it's probably about 18 or 20 hours just to finish it after it's welded. And then once you get the bronze put together and chased, the last part of the process of making a bronze is to add the color to it. You can see that there are a lot of different colorations here. Almost no 2 of them are the same. This color and this color might be the same, and that one, it's a little bit different, but they all end up being unique because it's a chemical process. Patination usually involves heat and always involves chemicals and sometimes a little bit of pigment. So this is a very basic patina on this piece here. Has just 1 chemical, and then that it turns the entire sculpture black, and then I have to take and rub 95% of that black off so that you can see the bronze in it. That's a traditional undercoat for a lot of that type of patina is actually the first coat for a lot of these other patinas. This little duck here has a very complicated patina on it. That is a very hard patina to get. That has several base coats, and then on the top I spray white pigment suspended in water along with another chemical, and you can see it. There are really dark brown spots. It almost looks like it was burned, and that actually is because it is burned. Doing this patina is kind of like roasting a marshmallow. So you get it you've got it in the fire, and you look at it and you're like, oh, you think it's perfect. You put it in there for 1 more second, and oh, it's ruined. And so that's exactly what doing these types of patinas like this one and this one and this one are very hard to do. They're very complicated because every square inch, you got to look at every square inch and make sure you burn it the exact same level, to the exact same level as if you were cooking 100 marshmallows in a row and you wanted them to all look the same. Sometimes I make a form, and I'll have a wax form in my studio. I have used ones that I've looked at for 10 years and not seen anything in them. So it'll be sitting there. I don't like that. I don't like, and then I'll pick it up. And in some cases, 8 or 10 years later, I'll find something that it goes to. And that's a really kind of exciting moment. Like, oh, I'm glad I didn't throw that one away, or I'm glad I didn't melt it down. So if you look at the head of this woman here, I mean, this ends up being an actually very elegant piece, I think. And this all started with this shape that is the head. And if you look at that shape, it's cored out on the inside. It has surface here like this, and then the back is solid. It's kind of like a sphere on the back. So if you imagine that I could cut that off and just hold it in my hands, just the head, that thing, this and this almost look like a nose, and with this being a mouth back here. And so I had this piece, I spent, I don't know, 12 hours making this piece right. So just this part from here up and this part here around the back, like that. And I loved the piece, and it was a real technical challenge to make it hollow. And so I enjoyed it. And then it sat on my bench for several years, and I couldn't do anything with it because it looked like a Muppet mouth to me. If this is a nose and this is a big smiling mouth, if you put 2 big round eyes up here, that would look like a Muppet head. And so every time I picked it up, I thought, oh my God, I can't make that into a sculpture because that's going to look like a Muppet. And so I was almost ready to melt this piece down, which ended up being so crucial to this different type of elegant piece. And at some point, I just stuck a rod underneath this, and I thought, oh my goodness, this could be a face. And so as soon as I could think of that shape in a different way, it totally shifted what was possible with that form. And to me, that kind of aha moment is a really exciting part of what I do.